Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Jordan, and welcome to JC's Anime Reviews. And today we're going to be talking about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 2 Battle Tendency. This is the second part in my JoJo review series, and if you haven't seen Part 2, I wouldn't watch. Or no, if you haven't seen Part 1 yet, then you shouldn't watch this video because there will be spoilers for Part 1. There's no way to get around that because I cannot talk about the next part because the part before this is gonna have some importance to this part. So if you haven't seen part one yet, don't watch this video. But if you want to go check out my other video, my part one video or review, you can go do that. You can, if you haven't seen JoJo's yet, then I'd recommend checking that one out and decide whether or not you want to give all of JoJo's a shot. But definitely watch part one before you watch this one, or part one of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure before you watch this one. So yeah, with that out of the way, if you have seen part two, then we're gonna be talking about that, and I'm not gonna be spoiling part two, but there's spoilers for part one. So yeah. Half a century after the events of Phantom Blood, in New York City, Jonathan's grandson, Joseph Joestar, discovers the legacy his grandfather left for him. When an archaeological dig unearths the truth behind the stone mask, he realizes that he is the only one who can defeat the Pillar Men, mystical beings of immeasurable power. So I really enjoyed part two. I think that this is where I really started to like JoJo's because for me, when I went into watching JoJo's, I was like, I heard that it was super weird, and I didn't know what to expect, and I really thought I was gonna not like it. I was like, this just seems really weird. Like, it's gonna be a weird anime, and like, I don't know why it's so popular, and I was just like, And then I watched the first part, and I was like, wow, that was actually pretty good. And then I watched the second part, and I was like, man, this is actually a really good show. And that was, I think that mostly happened in part two because there also are like a few more bizarre things that happens in this one than in part one. And when they happened, I thought that they were funny, and I could see why a lot of people liked this show that was like really bizarre, but it's also really fucking good. I think that this season had really good fight scenes, really good characters, and one of my favorite scenes in the entire show is this. Speed wagon. Just the way he says Speedwagon, I love that part so much. I don't know why. That's like my favorite part about this season. I really like that. So now we're gonna get into talking about the characters. There's more characters in this one than the first one. The first one, I think there's only like a handful of characters, and you're only with them for like 9 episodes or something like that. So while yes, part one is great, I just don't feel like you really got a lot of each of the characters, which is fine. I feel like it's like everything else is built off of that. So I definitely do think that like they did a really good job with that. That's one thing that I do like about JoJo is that how they connect each part, and like each part can't really exist without the part before it. And then in this one we have the part 2 JoJo, which is Joseph, which is probably one of my favorite JoJos. Joseph is introduced as Jonathan's grandson living in New York City with his grandmother Irena, and seems to have naturally inherited the power of Hamon. Joseph is hot-headed and confrontational. He also has the uncanny ability to predict what his opponents will say next. And that's one of my favorite things about this JoJo is like, so there's these scenes that happen a lot throughout the show where he's fighting and will just say, your next words are going to be, and then blah blah blah. Then the person will say the thing that he just said, like blah 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 blah, and then they'll realize like, oh, you predicted what I was gonna say, and it's so, I really love that about this part. Like it's just so like ridiculous, but like after it happens a lot, I just really liked it, and I thought it was really funny. And like you knew something cool, or Joseph was gonna do something badass or cool when he predicted what the person was gonna say, and I really like that about this one. It's awesome. I think that this is probably one of my favorite JoJo's, as I was saying. And if you don't know, each part has a new main character. So that was interesting about this one too. Is so I like had no idea what JoJo's was about. I just knew that it was weird, and that was about it. And I went into this one. I watched the first 9 episodes, and they killed off the character, like, or Jonathan. I was like, wow, they killed off the main character. And then you have Joseph come in. I'm like, and then that's kind of where it like hit me. I'm like, oh, they're like changing the main character, and that I think that I thought was really unique, and I think it was like, well, yeah, I finally realized it because part 3 there's a new character, but they all connect, and I just thought that that was awesome. It was like my first time ever seeing an anime do this. I think this might be the only anime that does it. I might be wrong though. I don't know. This is the first one that I've seen. It's probably the most popular one that changes the main character, which I don't think is really done in any other anime besides this one. And also, one of my favorite characters in this one is it's Caesar A. Zappelli, who's the grandson of Will A. Zappelli, and Zappelli was the like master. He was like Jonathan's master in part 1, and he taught him Hamon, and he was like this super strong master. He was like kind of like this master character, and like he taught Jonathan how to use Hamon. And so this is his grandson. And also, one thing that JoJo does that like I didn't realize this because I'm not a fan of these things, but a lot of their characters are named after rock bands. And the creator Hiroyuki Araki, which is the creator of JoJo, I think he was a huge fan of rock bands or like different bands, because a lot of the characters throughout all of JoJo all are like references to some band. A lot of them are like 70s or 80s rock bands, which I didn't realize that. Although I know a lot of these bands. I've heard of many of them. I don't really listen to this type of music. I've heard their songs before, and I think that they have pretty good songs. There are a few that I don't really know of, but I just thought that was really interesting. So the Zappelli surname is named after the rock band Led Zeppelin, which I'm sure that you've heard of that. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of that name, and they're pretty famous. Now, to be honest, I don't know anything about rock bands, so I'm not really going to tell you too much about like each of these bands. I'm not very good at that. But, so going back to Caesar, he's a blonde, suave ladies' man, as well as a skilled Hammond user. He was taught by Lisa and currently lives in Italy. He is rather cool and collected, especially compared to Joseph, with whom he is grudgingly paired to fight the Pillarmen. I really like Caesar. He's probably one of my favorite characters, and I liked seeing how they kind of started off. Well, basically throughout this whole part, they're rivals. Like, they kind of become friends, but they're rivals at the same time. So I really like that. It was funny. I thought the first time that he's introduced was really funny. They have this little, like, they both meet in a restaurant, and they have this little battle with, like, Hamon, where Joseph tries to, like, fling, or he, like, makes the pasta really hard with Hamon and tries to fling it into his, like, glass to break it, and he catches it with his fork or whatever. And I just thought that that was a really cool scene where they first get introduced to each other, and then they try to fight, and he reveals that he has some sort of, like, I guess, like, bubble power with his Hamon. Which I know at first it seems a little silly, but there's one fight scene with that, and he's actually really, really cool. He's one of my favorite characters in this part. Probably Joseph is my favorite character in this part, but I really like Caesar too. And then there's Lisa, a mysterious Hamon user who Joseph meets in Venice. Lisa reveals herself to be his friend Caesar Zappelli's mentor, and she ends up training Joseph in the way of Hamon and joins in the fight against the Pillarmen as a powerful Hamon user. So Lisa is another character who's introduced, I want to say, like, I actually don't know how many episodes, like the first few episodes, I think like maybe 5 or 6 episodes in, and ends up kind of becoming, she reminds me of, like, I guess, like how Zappelli in part 1 was Jonathan's master. It's kind of like that. She ends up teaching, or she puts Joseph and Caesar through some pretty brutal training. And also, Lisa is named after Lisa from the band Lisa and Cult Jam. Again, I don't know anything about these bands. But I just thought that it was interesting. They're all a lot of them are named after different bands, so I thought that was very cool, and I really like that. I really liked her as a character. I thought that she was really good. She's just one of those, like, she teaches them and is like really brutal in her training, and I really liked her too. And then we have, like, one of my favorite characters, or like throughout all of JoJo's, is Speedwagon. And we know Speedwagon was introduced in part 1. He was kind of like this gangster that Jonathan ended up becoming friends with, and he became good, and he ended up founding the Speedwagon Foundation in between part 1 and part 2. And it's a giant oil company which assists the Joestar family a great deal throughout the series. So this foundation that he forms is in, from what I was reading, I think they're in like from part 1 to 6 or part 2 to 6 or whatever. Like, and I just like that, like, from part 1, this guy that was introduced like had like such a huge effect, because like in every JoJo they always talk about the Speedwagon Foundation, and I really like that. Speedwagon is also named after a band. His full name is Robert E.O. Speedwagon, which is a reference to his initials are REO, and it's Rio Speedwagon is the name of a rock band from the 70s and 80s. Still don't know anything about these rock bands, but I thought that was cool. Figured I would just let you guys know about that. And I really like Speedwagon. Again, that scene with von Stroheim, I think, is like the Nazi general or whatever, where he says Speedwagon. I just love that scene so much, and it was really funny, and I really like Speedwagon. And then now we're gonna get into like our villains. Of course, it's Wamu, ECDC, and Cars. And basically, they're like really strong vampires. So, like in part 1, you had Dio, who became a vampire and was pretty strong. But these guys are essentially the same thing, but they're like super ancient beings that are like just really powerful. I think they're like hundreds of years old, and they end up awakening, and they're basically like the main villain. We have, oh, I said all their names already. And basically their whole goal throughout the show is to try to get the Red Stone of Aja. And basically it's supposed to give them like immortality and make them immune to everything, even like Hamon and all this stuff. It's like supposed to give them a lot of power, basically. And that's basically their whole goal throughout this show. We're going to go over all of them right now. So we have Wamu, and Wamu is named after the 80s duo featuring George Michael and Andrew Ridgeley called Wham. I still don't know anything about these bands, but I thought that was really cool. I think every one of these villains is named after a band, which is really interesting. And Wamu is introduced as a servant to both ECDC and Cars. He is a very strong and honorable warrior who possesses the power of the wind, and also reflectively attacks anyone who steps on his shadow. And he's also extremely honorable. There's one point where, when he's first introduced, where Joseph is on the floor injured, and he stops himself from defeating him because he wants to have like a fair battle, I guess, and like tells him he'll give him a month to train to get better to fight. And I liked Wamu. There was a couple of really cool fight scenes with Wamu, and I really liked him. Then you have ECDC, which he's named after the rock band AC/DC, which I think that if you listen closely in Japanese when they say it in the show, it's spelled ESIDISE, but it sounds like they're saying AC/DC if you listen closely. And this is one of the few bands that I know who AC/DC is. I think I've heard a couple of their songs, not totally sure, but ECDC, I'm going to pronounce it like that because I think that's just how it's spelled. But ECDC is one of the pillar men that were discovered by Nazis in Rome. Like Wamu and Cars, ECDC is very confident in his powers and abilities and sees humans as inferior. However, he has a more violent temper than others, to the point that he has to cry and sob to calm himself down. I really like ECDC. One of my favorite fight scenes in the show is with him. And in that fight scene, that one moment where he was getting like really mad and he had to cry to like calm himself down was when I realized that JoJo is a little... So this was like the first like kind of really bizarre moment. And I remember just laughing out loud the second, like, it shows he's about to get angry. I'm like, oh, he's probably just going to do that, like, normal villain thing where he gets, like, really mad or whatever and punches things or does something like that. But when he starts crying, I just started laughing, and I was like, this is awesome. And that's when I really, really started to like this show, and, like, just, I could see that some of the bizarre stuff in it is just awesome, and I love that. And then we have Cars, and he's named after the 80s rock band The Cars. don't know what that band is either. But Cars, he's the leader of the Pillar Men. He is intelligent, ruthless, and single-minded in his dedication to obtaining the Red Stone of Aja. Now, in my opinion, I think Cars is probably the least interesting out of all the characters, or out of all the villains at least, because he kind of just seems like this bad guy, and just is like, I'm really powerful and all that. I don't know. I wasn't the biggest fan of Cars. I didn't mind him. I liked him. I think that they were all pretty decent villains. I still they're not nowhere near the best villains in JoJo. That goes to part 4, which might be one of my favorite villains in all of anime. We'll talk about that when we get there. But part 2, I think, is actually pretty good. I actually really enjoyed it. I really like Joseph. In those fight scenes, just some of them are really, really good. And whenever he says whenever he says what the opponent's gonna say next, I love that so much. So I really think part 2 is just a really solid part. I really enjoyed it. So I'm gonna give JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 2 Battle Tendency an A-. I was going to give it a lower grade, honestly, but just thinking back on it, I actually really enjoyed part 2. I think my favorite part is I don't know, actually. Part 3, 4, and 5 are all amazing. I love all those parts. But I think that part 2 was actually really good, and I was going to give it a lower thing, but just thinking about it and talking about all this stuff and doing all the research on it, it made me realize how good this part is. But yeah, I think part 3 is where it gets a little weird, but it has the coolest, or one of the coolest power systems in all of anime, and I can't wait to talk about that part. So I think that's about does it for me here. I don't think there's much else to say about part 2. It's a really solid part. I just really enjoyed it overall. It has great fight scenes and characters, and I just enjoyed it all around. Hope that you guys enjoyed the video, and look forward to part 3, which should be coming soon. I'm going to try to do some research on it, because part 3 is I think it's the longest part in JoJo's, because part 3 is actually split up into 2 parts. I don't know if I'm just going to make one long video or split those up into 2 parts. We'll see. It kind of depends. I have to do my research and stuff like that on it now, or soon, because I've been trying to do a lot more research on these videos, and I'm actually having a lot of fun with them. So hope that you guys enjoy the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.